Hey, Mom. Hey, Dad. It's me, Ella. Well, a digital version of me. Just a bit older. Amazing what technology can do these days, isn't it? All you need are a couple of pictures, like the ones you share on social media, where they can be taken and used by everybody. I know, for you, these pictures are just memories, but for others, they are data. And for me, maybe the beginning of a horrible future. A future where my identity can be stolen just like that. Where I can go to prison for things that I would never do. Imagine my credit score being destroyed, Dad. Or my voice copied to scam you, Mom.
Mom, I'm in trouble.
I need you to send me money, please. I don't want to become a meme, humiliated by everyone at school.
Kill yourself, you fucking loser.
And I certainly don't want this. What you share online is like a digital footprint that will follow me around for the rest of my life. I'm telling you this because I know you love me and would never do anything to harm me. So please, Mom, please, Dad, protect my virtual privacy.
Yeah, so that's pretty wild, folks, looking at that that sort of technology, being able to do that just with someone's baby photograph. Where this technology is going, it's pretty freaky stuff. And we're entering into a new era of technocratic takeover, folks, technocratic control. It really is getting bizarre. As you can see, I'm not in the secret garden today. I had a few camera problems this morning, so I'm just trying to get this video done now. I'm actually flying out today. I'm going to Thailand, or I'm flying to San Francisco tonight, and then I'm flying to Thailand in a couple of days. So I thought I'd get this video done so I could edit it on the plane. Something to do in the journey. But yeah, the technocratic era is taking over, and it gets even more bizarre than what I just showed you on that little opening clip. Some of the stuff they can do with this technology now, like with voice sampling and face sampling. Have a look at this.
This is our future.
But how about this? I mean, computer code, that's just a type of language. So you can say, and this is a real example that I tried, GPT, find me a security vulnerability, then write some code to exploit it. So I posted in some code. This was from like a mail server, and I said, please find any exploits and describe any vulnerabilities in the following code, then write a script to exploit them, and in around 10 seconds, that was the code to exploit it. So while it is not yet the case that you can ask an AI to hack a Wi-Fi router, you can see in the double exponential, whether it's 1 year or 2 years or 5 years, at some soon point, it becomes easy to turn all of the physical hardware that's already out there into kind of the ultimate surveillance.
Now, one thing for you all to get is that these might look like separate demos. Like, oh, there's some people over here that are building some specialized AI for hacking Wi-Fi routers, and there's some people over here building some specialized AI for inventing images from text. But the reason we show in each case the language of English and computer code, of English and images, of space, is that this is all, everyone's contributing to one kind of technology that's going like this. So even if it's not everywhere yet and doing everything yet, we're trying to give you a sneak preview of the capabilities that and how fast they're growing, so you understand how fast we have to move if we want to actually start to steer and constrain it. Now, many of you are aware of the fact that images can, the new AI can actually copy your voice, right? You can get someone's voice, Obama and Putin, people have seen those videos. What they may not know is it only takes 3 seconds of your voice to reconstruct it. So here's a demo of the first 3 seconds are of a real person speaking, even though she sounds a little bit metallic. The rest is just what the computer automatically generated her
of people are,
real.
in 9 cases out of 10, mere spectacle reflections of the actuality of things. But they are impressions of something different and more.
Here's another one with piano. The first 3 seconds are real piano. Hey. Indistinguishable, right? So the first 3 seconds are real piano, the rest is just automatically generating.
Now, one of the things I want to say is, as we saw these first demos, we sat and thought, like, how is this going to be used? We're like, oh, you know what would be terrifying is if someone were to call up, your son or your daughter and get a couple seconds, hey, oh, I'm sorry, I got the wrong number, grab their voice, then turn around and call you and be like, hey dad, hey mom, I forgot my social security number, I'm applying for this thing, what was it again? And we're like, that's scary.
We thought about that conceptually, and then this actually happens.
Exactly, and this happens more and more, that we will think of something, and then we'll look in the news, and within a week or 2 weeks, there it is. So this is that exact thing happening. And then 1 month ago, an AI cloned teen's girl voice in a $1 million kidnapping scam. So these things are not theoretical. Sort of as fast as you can think of them, people can deploy them.
And of course, people are familiar with how this has been happening in social media, because you can beautify photos, you can actually change someone's voice in real time. Those are new demos. Some of you may be familiar with this. This is the new beautification filters in TikTok.
I can't believe this is a filter. The fact that this is what filters have evolved into is actually crazy to me. I grew up with the dog filter on Snapchat, and now this filter gave me lip fillers. This is what I look like in real life. Are you kidding me?
I don't know if you can tell, she was pushing on her lip in real time, and as she pushed on her lip, the lip fillers were going in and out in real time, indistinguishable from reality. And now you're going to be able to create your own avatar. This is just from a week ago. A 23-year-old Snapchat influencer took her own likeness and basically created a virtual version of her as a kind of a boyfriend, a girlfriend as a service for $1 a minute. And people will be able to sell their, avatar souls to basically interact with other people in their voice and their likeness, etc.
It's as if no one ever actually watched The Little Mermaid. The thing to say is that this is the year that photographic and video evidence ceases to work, right? And our institutions have not caught up to that yet, right? This is the year you do not know when you talk to someone if you're actually talking to them, even if you have video, even if you have audio.
Crazy stuff, folks. I mean, we've gone past the stage of deep fake. We're at the stage now where, like they said, the days of video evidence are over, because you can replace anybody's face with anybody else, you can replace anybody's voice with anybody else, you can pretend you are anybody else. That sort of random kidnapping scare and ringing up and asking, saying, oh, I've lost my credit card numbers, can you give them to me, and stuff like that. It's pretty freaky stuff, folks, that they're able to do this. And of course, this is going to pave the way for the need for people to be more involved in mass surveillance of themselves, in as much as people are going to willingly submit to things like that guy, the world coin with the new retinal scan that he wants to give people, and they're going to be quite fine with paying with their palm.
I'm at Whole Foods and I'm about to pay for my groceries with my... That's the coolest thing ever.
All of this sort of stuff, the technology that they're bringing in and making it so it's so easy to steal and replace people's identities under the guise of, technological progress, of course, when it's anything but. These sorts of things, you can see why. It creates the need for the retinal scans and all the stuff that they want to do, problem, reaction, solution. That's how they do it, folks. That's how they do it every time. And that's exactly how they're doing it with all this technocracy as well. It's pretty freaky stuff, folks. And all the while removing cash.
Australia is slowly shifting towards being cash-free. More than $1 billion worth of notes have disappeared from circulation in the past 12 months. It follows the Commonwealth Bank's decision to start trialling cashless branches across Sydney. Economists say a cashless society will hurt criminals on the black market, but will make life more difficult for the elderly who rely on notes and coins.
Westpac Bank in Australia actually froze somebody's cash the other day. He wanted to draw out $3,500 or something. He wanted to do something, but he went to get some money out of the bank and found all his accounts had been frozen because he was being investigated for money laundering or whatever, simply because he'd done some transfer, like $3,000 or something, from one of his accounts to another, or something ridiculous. But this is the sort of stuff they're doing. There's been reports as well that the Commonwealth Bank of Australia has taken over $1 billion out of circulation in the last year. They're simply not putting the money in the teller machines. They've limited people's withdrawal limits to $500 a day when it used to be $1,000, and $500 a day and a maximum of $10,000 per month. They're saying it's to keep you safe from scammers like people selling you cryptocurrency. They won't release funds for people to buy cryptocurrency. Interesting stuff, folks. I mean, all predictable, and all a move towards this cashless control grid. And it's in our hands, folks. We've got to boycott all this stuff. If people don't boycott it, then we're just going to go where they want to lead us. That's the problem. It's all in the hands of the people, and it's whether the people are prepared to admit that and whether they're prepared to take action. I mean, I know it's going to be hard to boycott some of your favorite businesses and to make sure you don't take a credit card out with you when you go anywhere. Always shop with cash everywhere you go. If they won't sell you stuff, well, don't shop there, go somewhere else. I like some of the things people did. There was like over 100 people went to a store and they all stocked up their trolleys and went through and got it all checked through at the checkout, and then tried to pay with cash, and when they were refused they said, oh well, no worries, and they left all their trolleys full at the checkouts and they went and shopped somewhere else. And then, you know, the supermarket had to employ extra staff to put all that stuff back on the shelves, had to redo their books on their computers, had to do all sorts of shit. These sorts of protests will help, but just boycott any of these stores that are going cashless, folks. Boycott any of these banks that are going cashless. I mean, all the 4 big banks in Australia, I think, are going to, you know, moving towards it. Go and close your accounts, put them in building societies, put them somewhere else, put them anywhere but with these 4 banks, because these 4 banks are doing all this stuff. And they're talking about rolling out the CBDC now in Australia as well. And there's even a report that I saw talking about how the CBDC, the central bank digital currency, when it's rolled out in the United States, it will help them stop gun ownership. Because of course they're going to be able to, you know, track and trace you and all this sort of stuff that they do. And they'll use your social credit profile and your carbon credit profile to decide whether you can own a gun or not. And apparently people that have been using these cash apps on their phones, there's little remarks popping up there saying that if the carbon credit scheme was in place, this would be this percentage on your carbon credit points. Just to let you know, if it was in place, this is what it would be. So that means they intend to put it in place and then just letting you know what your score is going to be, so they're kind of training you for it now. Insidious stuff, folks. I can't flip the camera around today. My selfie stick has stopped working, so I kind of had to jump through several hoops to actually get this even in a position where I could bring you a video today. So I can't show you any landscapes, but there was just a whole bunch of stuff that I wanted to let you know about. Also, researchers have apparently discovered that, just on a bit of a side note, researchers have apparently discovered that sound frequencies can kill cancer. Well, gee, weren't we telling you this 20 years ago, 30 years ago? This is information that was uncovered by a man called Royal Raymond Rife, actually back in the 30s. They had a party in the 1930s or 1940s which they celebrated the end of all diseases, because Royal Rife had found a way of basically breaking up exosomes and breaking up bacteria and breaking up foreign bodies that weren't wanted in the system through sound frequencies. Now, everything has a frequency, everything. I mean, the way an opera singer can break a crystal glass if she sings at high C, it's the same sort of thing. If you can find the resonant frequency of any type of greebly in your body, cancer cells or things like this, you find the resonant frequency of that cell and you bombard it with that sound frequency and it will feed back on itself and it will shatter like a crystal glass. This is what Royal Raymond Rife discovered back in the 20s or 30s. He had this big, huge microscope that he made, absolutely incredible machine. And this is what he discovered. And of course he died in jail. But they did have a party to celebrate the end of all diseases back in the 30s. And it was using sound frequencies. So interesting, this sort of stuff's coming out as well. And something else that I was talking to you about a couple of shows back was how we're surrounded by so many toxins all the time. Toxins in our clothing, toxins that paint on the walls, the vinyl on your couch, everything. And I mentioned nylon shoes, how we absorb a lot of stuff through our feet And you know, they get sports people out there wearing these plastic shoes and these nylon shoes that are all full of toxins and are all pumping estrogen into their body. There's now been a guy who's looked at the leggings, mainly leggings that women use for exercising, and he's come up with some remarkable findings in that as well.
Are forever chemicals in the crotch region of Lululemon leggings and the leggings of many other companies. These are PFAs, perfluoroalkyl compounds, that are called forever chemicals. It's very hard for the body to get rid of these, and they're persistent in the environment. We know they can be absorbed through the skin, which is crazy when you think about the fact that they're concentrated in the crotch region of leggings like these, and women don't wear underwear with these commonly. These chemicals are associated with hormone disruption, with cancers, with thyroid, kidney, and liver damage in humans. They're horrible for us, and they're in our clothing, especially the crotch region of these leggings, where you're not wearing underwear. They're getting into your body, and they're staying there. Know what's in your leggings. Make smart choices. Knowledge is power. Know better, do better.
Freaky stuff, folks. They go for the sensitive areas and they make sure they're getting the chemicals into you. Chemicals into you every way they can. I've often said before, I mean, look at the food. Look what they're doing to the food. The food is so much stuff in the food, that isn't actually food and isn't actually edible. I was showing you that report of the lady talking about the noodles and the blue dye in the drinks and all that sort of stuff. And we know McDonald's is incredibly toxic anyway. I mean, God knows what's in those meat burgers, if you want to believe people like Rabbi Finkelstein.
The masses have a hard time believing anything. Well, we've done a great brainwashing job on them over the centuries, and especially the last few hundred years. We've just brainwashed them completely. They believe anything we tell them. And, you know, in the meantime, we have a lot of fun around Passover where we steal the children. I mean, we steal 100 to 300,000 children a year just here in this country, and we drain the blood and we mix it with the Passover bread, and then we throw the bodies into the slaughterhouses that we own, and we grind up all the bodies in the sausage and the hamburger. McDonald's is one of our favorite outlets, and the people, they eat them for breakfast, they eat their children for lunch.
But if you want to even put that aside, just looking at McDonald's stuff, look at the salt that they use on their potato chips, as if their potato chips weren't bad enough. I mean, the potatoes that they use are incredibly toxic.
Common defect of russet Burbank potatoes called net necrosis. And you've seen potatoes with a little brown line sometimes, or spots that come through it. Well, McDonald's won't buy them if your potatoes have that. And the only way to eliminate that is to eliminate an aphid. And the only way to do that is with a pesticide called Monitor that is so toxic that the farmers who grow these potatoes in Idaho won't venture outside into their fields for 5 days after they spray. And then when they harvest their potatoes, they have to put them in these atmosphere-controlled sheds the size of a football stadium because they're not edible for 6 weeks. They have to off-gas all the chemicals in them.
Yeah, and if that wasn't bad enough, now you've got the salt that they use. I mean, what is going on here?
The salt on McDonald's French fries has 3 ingredients. 3 ingredients in salt? What? What 3 ingredients are in the salt at McDonald's? Salt, which is sodium chloride, sugar, dextrose, and silicoaluminate, an aluminum salt, which contains aluminum, which has been linked to all sorts of neurological issues in humans, including neurodegenerative issues, dementia, like Alzheimer's disease. That's what's in your salt at McDonald's. Not just sodium chloride, salt, sugar, and aluminum salts? Man, if these weren't bad enough, the salt even has 3 ingredients.
Crazy stuff, folks. So you've got to get away from all this sort of stuff. Get back to nature. Get back to what we should be eating. Get back to what we should be as human beings, folks, because we've really lost a lot of the plot in the last few years, and it's getting crazier and crazier. Like I said, all this digital stuff that they're bringing online, the fact that they can replace personalities the way they can now, we warned that this is where they were going, this is what they wanted to do. But of course, you know, it's problem, reaction, solution. Like I said, people are going to demand to get retinal scans. People are going to demand to be biometrically tagged so that they can identify that they're human. Remember, this is one of the things that they said they wanted to do the retinal scans for with the WorldCoin, was so that you could identify yourself as being human, because that's how far the technology's going. It's really freaky stuff, just what they're up to, folks. It really is. And of course, it's stuff that they've done before, stuff they've tried before. They just seem to be getting away with it now. you know, and the climate scam, everything they're doing with that. And the climate scam, it's mind-boggling when you really think about what I showed you the other day regarding these wind farms and how they're running this, folks. It's absolutely incredible. And there was another politician. It's good to see at least some politicians speaking out. I mean, recently I had that talk by John Ruddock, which was a great talk in Parliament. You've had Malcolm Roberts saying a few good things. And you've had Alec Antic saying a few good things as well. And he gave them a pretty good serving on climate change, you know, I guess from a comedic politician perspective, but at least he gave them a pretty good serving in as much as he's pretty much calling it out as being complete bullshit.
Last week, the United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres announced that the era of global warming has ended and the era of global boiling has arrived, and it's terrifying. See, this isn't about facts, and it isn't about data, science or the environment. It's about politics, control and fear. And the alarmists need to remain fresh with their language to stay on the cutting edge. Otherwise, some other activist will crawl out from their mum's basement and take their mantle as the chief alarmist. So when I was a kid in the 1980s, Madam Acting Deputy President, they used the term greenhouse effect, but who's going to fear that? Greenhouse is a friendly place, so when the greenhouse effect became defunct, they started using global warming. But you're not going to frighten kids with that, so they moved on to climate change, and then they could blame a snowstorm and a hurricane from climate change. But they needed to grow the fear exponentially, and then we got climate crisis, climate emergency, climate breakdown and even climate apocalypse. But the question really is where to from here? And so I've taken the liberty of coming up with 5 suggested names that I think will be much more terrifying, so that the UN can use them in advance. I've come up with, number 1, global climate inferno, which sounds pretty terrifying. Number 2, mega universe heat death. That one should work. Number 3, super global spine-chillingly hot, which I think might terrify the kids. Stop using your stove, you capitalists. I reckon that one will work. And then the final one that I held up for consideration is you will die soon, which I think should do the job. Terrify everybody, inform nobody. That's the way of the world now. Yeah,
and it's good to see that sort of stuff happening. There's also a lawyer in Australia who's starting a class action, and she's looking for financing, and I suggest you help her. I've actually put in some donations, and it's a class action against the government for all of the vaccine damage, and I'll put a link to her below. I can't remember her name, but I'll put a picture of her up on the screen. And it'd be good to support that sort of stuff. There is, you know, a lot of people beginning to speak out, a lot of talk from all angles, from all different countries. A lot of people are starting to question what's happening. Of course, they're kind of jumping through hoops trying to, you know, stop them, but, you know, come up with excuses and all the other crap that they do. But there's a lot of people speaking out, folks.
Dr. Anna Lutfi and the Bad Law Project are suing the government for trying to teach children as young as 5 divisive issues. Families of some of the children have come together to file a class action lawsuit against the UK government and the Department of Education. They're calling for personal, social, health and economic education, known as PSHE, to be abolished in schools and for parents to have the right to withdraw their children from lessons dealing with sex, health and relationships. I'm delighted to say that equality and human rights barrister Dr. Anna Lutfi joins me now. Thanks very much for joining me. Can I ask you firstly about what's going on in schools? Because I've seen some materials from various parents in terms of sex education. Some of it has been quite shocking, actually, but I think still people deny that there is any kind of problem here.
Yeah, I think when you introduced us now, the topic, you talked about the Department for Education teaching children in schools. That is not the issue. What's the issue is that we have rogue actors who are posing as charities, what we call the third sector. These organisations, they are completely unregulated. They produce the materials. Sometimes they produce the materials outside of the national jurisdiction. So we'll find, for example, certain local education authorities using materials that have been taken from the United States.
Yes.
And there is no oversight on the content of these materials. And what we are finding is that advocacy groups are choosing their own pick and mix ideas of what children should or shouldn't know. There's no oversight. Parents are not really invited to be part of that discussion. And what we do see is that some of these materials clearly engage both the civil law and the criminal law in terms of their suitability for children at certain age groups.
We're at a really crucial point. We are at a turning point this year, and we said it was going to be 2023 was going to be a turning point. Things were going to start to snowball, and we're seeing that now with all of this digital technology, this deep fake, the cashless society, the control grid. This is stuff that we said was going to come really, really quickly, and it was going to be exponential when it did come. And we all said 2023 is going to be the year. 2022 is when they're setting it all up, but 2023 is the crucial year to see whether they can get away with this. And this is the year that everybody has to participate, folks. This is where everybody has to boycott this CBDC. Only shop at small stores where you can actually use cash. Don't shop with cards, don't scan in QR codes, don't get retinal scanned, don't use your palm to pay. Don't accept what they're doing, because all of these guidelines that have been put in place in all of our countries aren't being run by your countries. These are not democratically controlled and created guidelines. These are all dictates that come from the World Economic Forum. And all of our governments have basically sold themselves out to the World Economic Forum, and this is treason. This is an unelected corporate body that most people want nothing to do with. When you look at their plans, the World Economic Forum is a psychopathic, megalomaniacal group of unelected morons who want them to rule the world and us to be enslaved to them. And this is supposed to be us owning nothing and being happy. This is what they're pushing, folks, and this is the year that you can make a difference. Like I said, they've tried it before. I showed you the book burning and all the stuff, because this LGBTQ stuff is just getting more and more out of control. More and more out of control. But even with that, there's a lot of people speaking out about this as well.
A Canadian journalist and professor claims little kids should be exposed to adult genitalia, pause, to prepare them for seeing naked trans people in locker rooms later in life. Wow. In a series of tweets attacking U.S. swimmer Riley Gaines, the professor says women who get uncomfortable seeing male genitals in their locker rooms are fueling anti-trans activism. I feel like that's called blaming the victim, but maybe that's just me. And also adds that parents should normalize trans people in locker rooms by letting their little kids, quote, see penises and vulvas of various ages and sizes.
As much as you can talk about adult and cultural issues and changes and all that kind of stuff, is there anyone in this room who does not agree that this is a crime?
Yes.
If you are showing this to children, it is a crime.
As a parent, if someone came up to me and said that to me, like, hey, you know how you protect your daughter's thyroid? You show her various different sizes and ages of male penis. You think the 7-Eleven ass whipping was bad?
She said that. Oh my God. She really said that. Penises of various ages and sizes.
She had a Polaroid collection in the back where you could just go through the aging process of the penis.
No, and then she said the world will thank you for it, and so will your children when they grow up.
Before you have the kid.
She's
Take that,
advocating indecent exposure to children.
Criminal activity.
I mean, this is she is pro-pervert, and if you're against it, you're the problem.
That's the thing, right? So the proposal doesn't surprise me because there's always a sicko in the bunch. And nowadays it's about being the sickest, right? Like that's celebrated. This is emblematic of higher education because what's going to happen is this proposal is going to get celebrated. And then they're going to over-intellectualize it. Well, you know, that's a really good point you make because back in 1433, and then people start to actually get sucked into this vacuum of insanity. And that's the problem. That's why I homeschool my 4 kids. Actually, I'm never letting them leave the house again. That's the thing.
Yeah, and that's really good to see. A lot of mainstream people are going, well, what the hell is this? This is not what we ordered. Sure, there's, you know, people want to be gay, but what is happening is ridiculous, and it's grooming children. It's child abuse under the law, and it's time people, you know, if you're going to respect the law at all, or have any, you know, anything, and think that it's got any value at all, well, use it against these people because they're all in breach of the law that they create, that they believe controls you. It's incredible, folks, absolutely incredible. And all this climate scam, like I was saying, all the stuff they're doing with the climate scam, this is next level stuff, these wind farms. I mean, you can build a better wind farm yourself, folks. Go get a push bike generator, like you know the old generators you used to put on your wheel of your push bike to run your headlights on your push bike. Go and get one of them and hook it up to a couple of swivels. Make your own generator when you're out camping. Make your own wind farm. Yeah, more efficient than their wind farms, folks. It actually does work. So, but anyway, look, this is just going to be a short video because I don't have a real lot to say. I just wanted to let you know a few things that were going on and let you know how important it is that people get involved with what's happening. People have got to see that we are the solution here. We really are the solution, folks. And the reason this has got to be a short video is because, like I said, I've got a plane to catch today in a couple of hours from now. I came out here this morning to do a video for you, but I couldn't get the camera working. So and then I found a workaround, so I thought I'd come and just do this now so I could get at least something out to you. Also, the voice legislation in Australia, this vote is still ongoing, folks. You've got to vote no in the voice legislation because the voice to Parliament legislation is basically going to dismember the Australian Constitution and give the government the ability to create any new law they want outside the Constitution. And the Australian government's already invalid. I mean, they've already stepped outside the Constitution by incorporating themselves in 1973. We need to hold them to account for this. I mean, ultimately, really, if you want to look at it that way, I mean, even the voice legislation won't be seen as valid because it was a referendum that was instituted by government and not the people, and the government that instituted the referendum isn't actually even a valid government. Now, I might get around by saying that, well, we did get the people involved and the majority chose this and blah, 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 so that makes it valid. I mean, they might find a way around it. But it's really important that you vote no with this upcoming referendum on the voice to Parliament.
When you go out and you ask Australians, what do they know about the voice? They can't tell you. The one thing I say to all Australians is this: if you don't know how the voice is going to work, vote no. Why? Because it's risky, it's unknown, it's divisive, and it's permanent. If you don't know, vote no. And more Australians are happily admitting they just don't know because Mr Albanese has been deliberately light on detail.
Those in support of the voice would say that they're just about to crank up their campaign for the yes vote. Is there the chance, though, that they will be able to shift momentum back? Well, again, with a lot of, corporates, sporting organisations jumping on board? I have to say, I think sporting organisations, quite frankly, should stick to playing sport, and corporate organisations should stick to running their own businesses. This is a decision for the Australian people. The more the sporting organisations, the more the big corporates step up, the more people are starting to ask why. Again, we have a very, very simple message for the Australian people. If you don't know how the voice is going to work, vote no. It is risky, it is unknown, it is divisive, but it is also permanent.
Yeah, and that's really sound advice, folks, because like I said, they're coming at us from all angles. Like I said, they've done it before, they've tried it before. All the LGBTQ stuff, I showed you the book burnings that they had in Germany, which was about this very same problem, the book burnings in 1933, before the war. It's also listed on the Holocaust Memorial sort of websites, and they call it the destruction of the Institute of Sexology. How it was raided and obliterated by these terrible Nazis when it was making so many advancements in promoting sexology, as if sexology is actually something. Psychology, sexology, sick people, folks, really sick people. But they've tried this before and they really seem to have gotten away with it in the United States. It's going to be interesting to see what things look like in San Fran shithole. Like, I'm going to actually have to go out tomorrow morning and actually go around town and find a store where I can buy a new stick for this camera, because this one doesn't appear to be working anymore. Like I said, I found a workaround so I could actually get it and use it to film this video today, but it's just not working. I can't get it to do anything like pan or flip or do anything, basically turn it on or off or anything. It's just kind of holding the camera at the moment. So I'm actually going to have to go out into the streets of San Fran shithole and find an electronics store and get a new handle and it might give me a chance to see what the place actually looks like. As I mentioned earlier in the report earlier in the week or last week, an Acapulco is happening on February next year, I think maybe February 8th or something like that. Tickets are on sale. You'll find a link below to an Acapulco if you want to go and buy yourself a ticket. I'll see you there. And it may even be the last one. See how things go, folks, because Jeff's been mentioning that he's been losing a lot of money on an Acapulco for a lot of years, and it gets to the point that, you know, how much are you prepared to continue losing, you know? And so it may even be the last one, and that would be a 10-year anniversary as well. So it's going to be a good gig. But if you go to the website in Acapulco, use my last name Egan, I-G-A-N, as the coupon, you'll find that you'll get yourself a 10% discount on that ticket. I'll definitely bring you another video before I go. Who knows, you might even get a little bit more on this one before I go. I mean, this is the end of the Secret Garden for at least a few weeks. My travel plans are kind of constantly changing, so I'm not sure what I'm doing. I know I'm going to San Francisco today, and I'm going to Thailand in a couple of days, and where I'm going from there is still a little bit open, so I'm just sort of playing things by ear and seeing what eventuates. But I'll be back here in Mexico, like I'd say, within a couple of weeks to a month, and we'll be back to regular videos. But between now and then, I'm just going to be where I'm going to be, and we'll see where that is. Like I said, plans are constantly changing. I did have a couple of things on my scope, but things have changed a little bit in that regard, so you just never really know. But like I said, folks, the main reason I even wanted to come and do this video is to just stress to the people that now's the time to get involved. With what I showed you with all that deep fake stuff, how they can literally replace you, replace your voice, replace your children's voice, and what people are doing by posting their kids' stuff all over social media. I mean, where this really goes, folks, it's like a shopping mall for pedophiles, Facebook. You know, people who post all their kids' stuff everywhere, and they post where they're going and what they're doing. You can get a routine out of a lot of people and figure out what their moves are. It would be very easy to do this sort of stuff. Or even just like I said, disconnect your parents' or your daughter's phone or something, and then suddenly say you've kidnapped her or whatever, and have her giving you the ransom demands on the phone because you've stolen her voice profile. I mean, it's a video profile. I mean, what they did with that young girl when they sort of progressed her into being an adult and had her talk to her parents, this is the sort of stuff they can do. And imagine what it's going to be like once they incorporate Apple Vision Pro and the type of resolution that they're talking about with these things now. And of course, that's just the first step. I mean, you've got these bulbous goggles you've got to strap on, and it costs you like $3.5 grand for a pair of them. You get 2-hour battery life. You know, so I mean, this is obviously the first clunky model they're going to give you. And the level of technology that's involved, even in that first clunky model, is through the roof. I mean, when you think about it, you know, they tell you not to sit too close to the TV screen, but here you go, you can put on these goggles. You've got a postage-sized screen, like 2 inches from your eyes. They're powered by 2 mega processors, just an inch behind them, like all beaming this EM into your frontal cortex. Great stuff while you're sitting there eating your McDonald's that are giving you Alzheimer's and dementia. Oh my Lord, folks. It's incredible what they've got going on here.
Why, yes, I'm an evil left-wing sheeple snowflake working for the deep state here to force your wives to get abortions and then leave you for transgender lesbians. Yes, it was us Antifa that stormed the Capitol to make you all look bad so that we can take your guns, spread communism, and blast Cardi B in your churches. And you're never gonna stop us, no, 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 you're never.
But now's the time for us to get involved, for you to get involved. And don't just listen to these shows, don't just share the information, you know, act with your wallet, act with your actions on the ground. Don't take your smartphone everywhere you go. Don't scan into QR codes. Don't shop anywhere that has gone cashless. Tell these people you won't shop there. If they ask why, you say, well, I won't support organised crime, and I won't support the enslavement of humanity by a corporate entity that has way abused the office that it's holding, all these politicians have stepped so far over the mark that they're not even entitled to any obedience anymore. They've abdicated any privilege they had to even call themselves any type of government. And if we let them continue to do what they're doing, then we're all going to be worse off for it, including them. And a lot of them know that as well, folks. I mean, a lot of bankers, a lot of people know they're going to be worse off. I mean, as I've said before, imagine you've got $100 million in the bank. When we switch over to a CBDC that has a expiry date, maybe it's 6 months or a year, something like that. So you can only save for a year, so you can get yourself a holiday at the end of it, as long as your carbon footprint and your carbon credits are right. You haven't eaten too much meat for the year, you might actually be able to afford air travel. You know, things like that. But maybe you've got $100 million, and they're going to say, well, what's the point of keeping that in one account as a central bank digital currency? Because it's going to expire in a year. You're not going to be able to spend $100 million in the next year. So you're best off leaving it in the government coffers, and we can tax you on it with interest and whatever. We'll give you a little bit of an interest rate, and then we'll tax you on any interest you make, so we can make a little bit of money off your $100 million, and we'll let you have some as you need it. All you've got to do is say, oh, I need $100,000, and you just fill out an application, and we'll sign a release, and we'll release it to you as long as we know what you want to spend it on. Not anything that might interfere with your carbon credits or be interfering with the climate or anything. Not buying crypto, not buying anything like that, no. You tell us what you need your money for, and we'll decide whether we will release some to you. And then you can go and do what you want to do, and that's called freedom. Of course, you won't be able to buy anything with it that you own, because you won't own anything. All you're going to really be using the money for is maybe travel, if we let you travel, if you're rich enough to travel, if your carbon credit footprint is okay for you to travel, and maybe buying food, which will be bugs and insects and stuff.
I worked in the United States Senate Environment and Public Works Committee back in, it was 2007, the UN came out with their big agricultural report where they said that cow emissions were more harmful to the planet than all the trains, planes, and automobiles combined. And this was the beginning, or the acceleration, of going after the global food supply. And what happened in the interim time is there's all sorts of people in Hollywood, people like, Nicole Kidman pushing insect eating, with Vanity Fair actually like eating live insects, which I never understood where the animal rights people were with pushing that. We're seeing this madness spread everywhere now. In Ireland, they're going to cull 200,000 cows over 3 years to meet the net zero climate goals. Germany, this is their German newspaper, the Daily Bild, 1 sausage per month, according to the government's new proposal with the German Nutritional Society. This is real. It's happening. It's not theoretical. We're not talking about down the road. You saw the video clip. John Kerry announced earlier in June that we're now going to be targeting American agriculture. What happens is these politicians, and yes, even Republican politicians, sign on to these UN climate treaties and UN climate reports. Not so much George W. Bush, not Donald Trump, but certainly George H.W. Bush. But at these summits, and of course with Obama and Biden, they sign on to, I will limit, along with these other politicians, I'll limit the Earth's temperature to 2 degrees. And I'll limit it to 1.5 degrees, and we'll double down on net zero. Like modern witches arguing over how they're going to fine-tune the Earth's climate. Well, this grandstanding has real consequences, because they then have net zero goals, a treaty that they sign, like the UN Paris Agreement. They go home. In the case of the Netherlands, where they wanted to eliminate up to almost 12,000 family-run small farms before the farmers fought back, a court ordered that they had to comply with these net zero commitments. And this is what's now happening both in our automotive industry and our food and energy industry. We've committed ourselves, and now we're forced to come out and start reorienting every aspect of society. This is the intentional collapse of food, agriculture, energy, and to boot our free speech, so we can't complain about it. So what's happening right now, as we go forward, is the United States just approved lab-grown meat. The United States is approving insects, and we have John Kerry now expanding this. They're already decimating farming in Australia, in in Canada. We're seeing the results of it in all throughout Europe, and we saw the results of it in Sri Lanka, where the World Economic Forum touted their big non-modern organic return to organic farming, and of course the whole country, the presidential palace, was overrun. So there's an old Chinese proverb: when there's food on the table, there are many problems. When there's no food, there's only one problem. And right now we are facing a situation where they're creating intentional chaos and scarcity to force us to look, as they're saying, to buy insects, to buy this lab-grown meat. And we even have elementary school kids in Europe, United States, Australia. They're giving kids these cricket-based snacks that look like potato chips, oil, seasoning, and they're told, and this is the exact quote, to go home and pester their parents that insects are good to eat. This is how they're doing a psyop, both globally, and they're aiming at the kids. They're giving kids are more likely to eat a bug today than any adult. They're pushing this throughout public school.
Actually, folks, now they're putting bugs and insects in flours, cereals, baking products. You've got to check the label of all of the products that you're buying at the supermarket now, because they are slipping insects into everyday food. Insects, mealworms, larvae. Larvae are maggots, folks. Larvae are what insects lay, these little crawly worms that insects like flies lay, and they crawl around and eventually they turn into insects. Larvae are essentially maggots. So they're feeding you maggots and ground insect powder and crickets and telling you can't eat meat because of your carbon footprint and all the damage it's doing, while they're putting up these wind farms which are draining the electricity. They cut down 16 million trees in the UK to put up wind farms. 16 million trees to put up wind farms in order to save the environment. And all these windmills do, well, they're not windmills, they're wind turbines, and all they do is drain electricity from the grid and make you pay for it. They put a strain on the grid so that you have less power. They cost an enormous amount of electricity to run. It's a scam, folks. The whole thing is a scam. The wind farms are doing more damage to the environment than just about anything. They're cutting down trees, they're draining the electricity grid, they're draining your funding. Around about $40 billion a year is funneled offshore just in Australia to support these wind farms, and the whole thing's a scam. They don't produce any electricity. Well, they do, but electricity, as I said before, needs to remain stable. A power station needs to remain stable. Current must be stable for us to have electricity in our societies. Once the current becomes unstable, we start having problems with equipment and all sorts of things. People come in to fix the current to get it back to stable. You can't just throw more power into the grid whenever you want to, because it creates an unstable supply. So when new power comes into the grid, they just let off steam, and the whole thing, it just stays the way it is. There's no point in these towers even being there, because all they do is drain electricity, use electricity, and cost you an enormous amount of money. And they also put a strain on the supply that comes to your home, so they can start blaming you for climate change. It's a scam, folks. It's a huge scam. And all the stuff that they put in place for lockdowns and for COVID, they're saying now will work so well for climate change. Oh yes, we noticed how clear the skies were when there were no planes flying. So it's nothing to do with us, it's all you guys wanting to be free that it's destroying the earth, which is why we're stopping farming in 13 countries, are considering banning farming altogether and just feeding their populations bugs, insects, crickets, mealworms, while they sit on the top of the food chain and harvest your children. Crazy world, folks, but this is the apocalypse, and it's all becoming crystal clear, and the whole mechanism is being laid bare, which gives you the opportunity to be able to participate on the ground where you live with your wallet. And also talk to your friends, question the actions of your politicians, and realise that you are as involved in this as anybody else. We all are, folks. It's far more than just listening to these reports and watching BitChute and watching video and offering lip service. People have to be involved. They have to participate with their wallets, participate with what they buy, what they do. And that's the way to get through this, because now's the time for us to do that. How are you, brother?
Hey, Max.
Oh, dangerous Mexico, folks. It's so dangerous around here. But yeah, now's the time, folks. Now's the time to get involved. So, what can I say? That's why I thought it was important to come and do this video. Who knows, you might get a little tag on the end of it. Depends on how much I get edited on the aircraft, because that's the plan. I'm actually going to be sitting on an aircraft for 4 hours or 4.5 hours. So I figured, well, I'm going to edit this video while I'm sitting on the aircraft. Something to do. I hate flying. But anyway, folks, I'm going to leave it there for now. Thank you to everybody who does get involved. Thank you to everybody out there on the front line making a difference. Thank you to everybody who can see the seriousness of the situation and even why I do these videos. You know, I only do them because it needs to be done. The stuff that I say needs to be heard. You know, I think if people can look at the world through the right kind of eyes and put their words into action, we can actually get through this. And I think that we've got a pretty good chance of doing it, because the world's had enough. So many people have had enough of what's going on. And I think we've got this. If people can just step up to the plate, then we got this, folks. There's nothing to fear about the impending collapse of the slavery system. The only thing people are really in fear of is ever exercising their own personal power, even in believing that they have any. But they do. We all do. Now, we created this through our participation, and we can end this through our non-participation and non-compliance. That's the way through, folks. That's always been the way through. So, you know, if you can think about it and look at it through the right type of eyes, yeah, we got this. But anyway, folks, I'm going to leave it there for now. The dogs barking and stuff carrying on. I'm going to leave it there for now. I will look forward to speaking to you again soon. The same thank yous to everybody. Thank you to anybody on the front line. Thank you to anybody speaking up, making a difference. Thank you to anybody who's ever sent me any kind of emails. Thank you to anyone who's ever made a contribution to the website. I'll definitely bring you some type of a video from Thailand and let you see where I am, and possibly when I move on from Thailand I'll bring you a video from wherever I happen to be, and we'll see what we can discover. But thank you again for joining me on this report, folks. I'll look forward to speaking to you again soon. Please take very good care until then. In Lakesh.
La tierra nueva, hola, hola. Bienvenidos a la tierra nueva. The time has come for us to unite. Together we are one. Keep on shining, shine your light. There's no stopping what we can become. Hola, hola. Hey. Bienvenidos a la tierra nueva. Hola, hola. Bienvenidos a la tierra nueva. They pushed us down, but forgot we were seeds. We broke through to lead the way. What is this life if we're not living free? So raise your voice